Okay, so we're back to talking about fractions, and I wanted to introduce you to a new idea to do with fractions. We understand some of the basics, and the new idea is called improper fractions. Now, I'll show you what that means by using actual fractions that we've got here. So far, we've learnt that this could be 1/4 of. So if I had a whole shape, I can add quarters until I get my whole shape. So that would be 2/4 of what you can see is going to be a circle. That's 3/4. Easy to understand. It's less than the whole, but if my fraction was 3/4, it would look like this. There'd be 3/4 to it. I could make a whole by adding all 4/4. It's still chopped into 4, but all of the parts are there. So the fraction would look like a 4/4. But what happens? What happens if you see a weird fraction where the top number is bigger than the bottom number? So for example, if I had 5/4, well, I need more than one whole, don't I? Straight away you can see I can't just plop that in. It doesn't fit. If I try to squeeze it in there, no, that's not going to work. I need to start a new circle. In this case it might be a pizza or a pie or whatever it is that you imagine. So in this case I've got a quarter dangling out there. Put there nicely. So that's what 5/4 would look like. 5/4, 5/4. I need to start another one. And it happens all the time when we're talking about things. We talk about things where somebody says they've given 110% in a game, but they can't because they would need to be 2 people to do that, as we can show you here. So if this was an orange, for example, and I said I would like 5/4 of an orange, you could do it, but I'd need to start chopping into another orange to do it. And so this would be 6/4, and then finally 8/4. 8/4 would look like 2 whole things. Now you notice that if you divide 8 by 4, you get 2, and that's precisely what's happening here. We've taken 2 whole things. Each of the things has been chopped into 4, and so there are 8 parts. The fraction would look like 8/4. Does it work with numbers? Well, let's have a look. Say we'll take a very simple number that you're able to chop into 4. We'll go 8. 8's a nice clean number that we can chop into quarters. So if I had 8, I would spread them out evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see there are 2 in each quarter, and that's all fractions are. So 1/4 of 8 is just 2. 2/4 of 8, same as a half, is 4. 3/4 of 8 is 6. Similarly, we can add another quarter if we're talking about an improper fraction. I always like to think of improper fractions as being a bit naughty. They're showing their undies all the time. So an improper fraction, I need another quarter. I could have 5/4 of 8, but it would be more than 8. Just the same as we needed more than one pie to chop into. Once we talk about improper fractions, I need to start on the next one. I need to start on the next set. So I could write 5/4 of 8. The answer would be 10. As you can see here, I've got 2 in each quarter. This still is 2 in each quarter. It's just that we've gone beyond our first set. We've started a new set. Again, if I added another quarter, another 2. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters, 6 over 4. And if I was saying 6/4 of 8, it would be all of that. It comes to 12. Makes sense. And you can keep going, of course. So if I had 2 whole things, I would end up with a total of 16, wouldn't I? It's a little confusing to start with, but you see how the numbers work. Once you've figured out, it's the same as other fractions that we do. Once you've figured out what 1/4 is, or 1/5, or 1/3, whatever number that you're chopping it into, then all of this is just multiplying that by 2. So in this case, I knew that 1/4 is 2. 1/4 of 8 is 2. So 8/4 of 8 is 16. It's basically 2 times 8. So that's improper fractions in a nutshell. So next we're going to have a look at some ones that are done on just paper. The trouble with doing this is that you can see it takes a lot of time to chop up all your shapes and spreading things out. You can do it like this, of course, but it takes a lot longer. So let's have a look at ways we can do it with just numbers. So have a look at the first one we've got here. 1/4 of 16. Now, there's different ways you could work that out. You could do some equal sharing. I like to use basic facts because it's just so much quicker. So 1/4 of 16 is the same as 16 divided by 4, or 4 times what is 16? In this case, it's 4. Straight away, we know that. Now, in this case, the questions have been set out that you go across the page like this. So it's something of 16, something of 16. So the first one's fairly easy. We're going 5/4 of 16. We're going to need more than one whole set. So the number that we end up with is going to be more than 16 because we have an improper fraction here. So what do? Well, we know that 1/4 of 16 is 4. And we know that we want 5 of those sets. So the maths is going to be 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. Pretty straightforward. Next lot. What would happen if we had 7/4 of 16? Well, again, we know that 1/4 of 16 is 4. So we would be going 7 times 4 in this case. 7 times 4 is 28. So we can use what we know to start doing some addition of fractions. Now, the thing to remember, the only trick with these, is to, when we're adding fractions that have the same denominator, in this case it's quarters, it's very, very easy. It's basic maths. So have a look at this example here. 1/4 plus 2/4 is 3/4. 1 plus 2 is 3. You'll notice the denominator stays the same because all it's doing here, the denominator is telling you how many times the thing's been chopped up. But the number on top tells you how many of those pieces we're dealing with. So in this case, 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 of those pieces. So let's have a look at this first one. 2/4 plus 2/4, well, 2 plus 2 is 4, so my number will look like this, 4/4. You could also say it's 1. Okay, another easy one. What is 1/4 plus 1/4? It's literally as easy as 1 plus 1. It's going to be 2/4 or 2/4. You could also say it's the same as 1/2 because half of 4 is 2. Similar sort of thing going on here. The denominators are the same. We're talking about fourths. Then it's just 3 plus 1. It's going to be 4/4, which is also the same as one whole thing again. Okay, by the time we get down here, it gets a bit more juicy. We're starting to look at numbers that require a little bit more thought. You're going to end up with improper fractions. So, I just wanted to explain a bit once we got into that, because that's where we start to talk about different ways of writing it down. If I had, we know we're talking about fourths, right, quarters. So we go 3 plus 3 is 6, we know that's 6 quarters. That's an improper fraction because the number above is larger than the 4. Another way to write it would be to say, well, how many times does 4 fit into 6? Well, it fits in once with 2 left over. So it is 1 and 2/4, or you could even say it is 1 and a half. That's the simplest fraction for 6 quarters. Next one, 2 quarters plus 3 quarters. Okay, well, it's all fourths. 2 plus 3 is 5, so it is going to be 5/4, which is the same as, well, how many times does 4 fit into 5? Once, and you've got a quarter left over. Oh, okay, well, how about this one here? It is quarters again. They all are on this sheet. 3 plus 5 is 8. So the improper fraction is 8 quarters. But how many times does 4 fit into 8 in this case? Well, it fits twice. So 2 is also the correct answer for this, because what you've done is you said, well, I've made 2 wholes. They've still been chopped into 4 pieces each, but like we showed earlier with the bits of paper, you end up with 2 whole pies in 8 pieces. Now, does it work with subtraction? Yes, it does, in exactly the same fashion. If you start with 3 and you take away 1 quarter, you end up with 2 quarters, which is the same as a half. If I start with an improper fraction, I might end up with an ordinary fraction. So I know I'm dealing with fourths here. So if I say 5 take away 3, I end up with 2. 2/4. Again, the answer could also be 1/2. That's the simplest version, as we've talked about before. Okay, might as well do the last one since we're here. If I had 7/4 and I took away 4/4, 7 take away 4 is 3, I'd end up with 3/4. That's probably a nice easy one to end on there. In this next part, what we're doing is deliberately looking at how we can turn improper fractions into proper fractions by using our understanding of how many times 4 fits into the numerator. So all this is doing is saying, well, think of 6 quarters as 4 quarters plus 2 quarters. So what would that mean? How would it look as a proper fraction? Well, 4/4 is 1 and 2/4 is a half. So the idea with these ones is to simplify it into the easiest types of fractions, into proper fractions. So these ones here, where the numerator is larger than the denominator, makes it an improper fraction. Now you've seen this one before. So 4 fits into 8 twice. It's 4/4 plus 4/4. So the whole thing, 1 plus 1, is going to be 2. So that's that one there. Now, I'll let you carry on and do the rest for yourself. Down the bottom of this page, there's a fairly important thing where we talk about how decimals and fractions are related. So the big information here is that 1/4 is the same as 0.25. So if I had one of these quarters here, I could say it is the same as 0.25 of 1. So if I was to fold that out, I would have 0.25 plus 0.25, it adds up to 1. Okay, so the decimal version of that is 0.25. If you were doing percentages, it would be 25%. You'll see the relationship there. So how does that help us? How can we use this? Well, what we've done here is put in fractions in the form of a decimal. So you've already done something like this. So you say, well, what is 0.25 of 16? When you're dealing with decimals and fractions, the times becomes of. Just in case you didn't know that already, we've talked about it before in other lessons. So 0.25 of 16 is the same as what is 1/4 of 16? 4. Now going across here, 0.5. Well, some of you may remember that half is the same as 0.5, so you could say it's, well, half of 16, but you'll notice that it's also double 0.25, same as 25 plus 25 is 50. 0.25 plus 0.25 is 0.5. Half of 16 is 8. Then 0.75, it's like 3 sets of 0.25. It's the same as 3/4. 3/4 of 16. You know 1/4 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So 0.75 of 16 is 12. Easy as that. Okay guys, I'll leave you with those last ones to have a play with. Yeah, go back over the video if you get a wee bit stuck. We will do this sort of thing with some of the other numbers as well. So if you don't get it this time, there'll be other opportunities to have a go. Okay, see you guys. Bye.